One of my favorite things about Go is just the physical act of putting these beautiful black and white stones upon the board. You know, when we play video games, the aesthetics actually matter quite a bit. Some people it matters so much to people sometimes that it becomes too important and they forget about the gameplay and they just kind of focus on the graphical part of it. And I think many people have become aware of putting too much importance on that. But I think like something like Go, we love the game because the mechanics are so good and it just works so well. But we don't really talk as much about the aesthetics of the game. And I think there's such a nice feeling about just black and white stones on a grid. And they're just, I mean, I guess we do talk about it a lot. I hear about this a lot. A lot of people love the patterns they form on the board. But I'm not even talking about the patterns as the game progresses. I'm like talking about like the actual physical stones wobbling on the board and just sitting there and just as an activity, taking turns and putting little rocks on a piece of wood. I think that's such a nice, peaceful activity to share with somebody. And I love it. And that's one of the reasons why I play Go. And I really want to play a physical over-the-board game soon with somebody who will play with me. Maybe I'll have to make a trip to a club or something like that to do that. But I just wanted to do a little, give a little love to the physical aspect of the game. You're listening to Start Point, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. Today, I tried to kind of boil down the elements of Go skill. And actually, that was what I originally was going to call this episode, but I'm renaming it to the Salty Crew of Go skill because, well, maybe in the future I will do a more thorough breakdown of Go skill or Go strength that will list a lot more. But this, I think, what I've tried to do here is kind of organize the main parts of what our brains are doing when we play Go and how each of those elements contribute to our overall strength or skill. And I've boiled it down to three main parts. So this is a fairly abstract thing. But what I'm calling it is the Salty Crew. Just to give a little visual and because I feel like there's an analogy to be made here. But there are three members. Well, you'll see why I'm kind of hesitating to call it three members here. But we'll just say for now there are three members of the Salty Crew. First one is the navigator or intuition. Okay, intuition is something that we always talk about with Go as Go players. It is what I would say is maybe the first responder of Go skill, the almost instant kind of reactionary stuff that you get while you're playing a game where you look at a move and you're instantly just kind of like, that's a good move, that's a bad move, or I want to play here, I want to play there, and like that looks good to me, right? Just the kind of just gut feeling. That's what intuition is, right? It's kind of just like a gut feeling. And intuition can not just dictate what you feel are good and bad moves. You can also feel like, oh, that's a threatening move, that's a dangerous move, right? There are urgent moves. You can just make a quick judgment. It's kind of just like your first screening of the move. And I would say this is it's kind of hard to say it's the most important because the other elements are very, very important as well. But it's so important that when a 9-Dan beats you without even trying or reading a single move ahead, this is because their intuition is so good, and they have baked into their navigator, right? Because I'm calling it a navigator because they're just kind of like looking out into where they can go, and then they just go there, right? They just say, "Let's go over there." But when a 9-dot beats you and they're not even trying, they're not reading, they're not thinking, they're just putting stones down the way they feel is most natural to them, and you're straining your brain to try to come up with the best moves possible, but for some reason you lose against this person who's not thinking at all. It's because there's so much information and skill and history baked into their intuition that they don't need to think. They can just beat you without thinking. And I think that's an awesome thing about Go is like, I mean, it is a little bit alienating sometimes when a beginner comes in and they're so easily beaten. But overall, like when you have put in the time and effort into this game and you build a strong enough intuition, it's like autopilot, and you can beat people who are ranked several layers below you with relative ease. And I think it's really nice having that assurance that there is a certain level of skill kind of just put into you without you even trying. So the next member of the Salty crew is going to be the captain, who represents judgment. So imagine the navigator is saying, let's go over there. There's an island over there. We should go over there. Things like that. And the captain is like, hold on. Before we go over there, let's see if we have all the resources we need. If it's feasible, does that look too far away? Are there obstacles in the way? Let's think about this. That is what I'm calling judgment, which asks all those questions that are very conscious questions. How many points do we need to win? What other ways are there to accomplish what you're trying to do? Is this risk worth the reward? How much time do I have remaining left on the clock? Like trying to balance all of these different values. Is my intuition just wrong? Like, I want to question my intuition. My intuition says this is a good move. Is it actually a good move? Should I question it, or can I trust it? What is the win condition for this game? So judgment, or the captain, it represents kind of like a critical thinking aspect of the game. I've kind of mentioned it for a few episodes, like I don't know how many episodes back, but there was a time when I was talking about how I needed to employ more critical thinking, more judgment into my game, because I was used to playing Fox games and I was just using intuition as the main guide. And then when I started playing more correspondence games, I realized the way to win these games, I need to step back more often and really strategize and consider the values that I have on the entire board. So this is a zooming out kind of function of the Salty crew. So we have the navigator who kind of points the direction and instantly knows and just kind of sees what might be able to be done. The captain who takes those inputs and says, hold on, okay, yes, those are good ideas, but what are we missing here? What have we not considered? And so on and so forth. What are basically the win conditions that I need to achieve in order to win this game? And then finally, the third member, which is actually not just one member, but it's in this analogy, it's the crew, the kind of deckhands and people doing the grunt work. And this crew represents calculation. And I call it calculation like they do in chess. Well, in chess, calculation is to chess where reading is to go. But I'm calling it calculation for the crew because in Go, I want to also include the act of counting. And I don't know if there may be other aspects of calculation that I'm missing out, but those are the two that I see in Go, which is like grunt work, which is brain power work. Like these are the reps that you put in when you do life and death problems. And it's like the brute force stuff, right? Imagine you had a very, very bad captain, a terrible navigator, but you had a very strong and massive crew, meaning you know how to read like crazy. Maybe this is a representative of someone who is a kid who was kind of born and raised on Go and maybe hasn't matured enough to develop the right judgment, but has this crazy sense of calculation and knows how to read 20 moves ahead very easily. Calculation. This is a very, very important skill, and you can't really say that you can't really discount it. It's actually, a lot of people say it's the most important thing for a certain level of player. And I think you can argue that maybe intuition or calculation are maybe the most important elements of Go skill in order to win games. Because like if you have the greatest judgment in the world, and if you have no intuition or no calculation, it's like a captain without a crew, without a navigator, without a ship. What is he going to do, right? He's not going to order anyone around. So it's like these are your assets that are building the foundation of the pyramid. But those are the three I have. So the navigator, who represents intuition, the captain, who represents judgment, and the crew that represents calculation. And to put it in short terms, the navigator or intuition generates ideas of what might be done. Judgment asks what should be done, the captain. And calculation, or the crew, verifies if something can be done or actually does the thing that needs to be done. So with these three parts in mind, I think having this in your head can kind of help direct what you need to be doing during a game, and also identify where you might be weak in your game. I think sometimes you kind of just say like, "Oh, I'm good at reading, but I've good intuition, or I've bad intuition, or my intuition doesn't tell me the right things, but I feel like I have a handle on what win conditions are needed. I just can't execute." There are many things that we can do. So how do we improve at each of these elements? So let's start with intuition. I think intuition is very tricky. Like, how are we supposed to understand why my intuition is telling me certain things, and how did I get that knowledge? It's hard to say. I don't really know. But I think with intuition, and this is like, it kind of reflects the whole self A and self B thing that comes from the inner game of tennis. And intuition being self B, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. It's the one that's like subconscious, and it's like under the conscious layer. Well, that's what subconscious means. But funnily enough, I think intuition will benefit the most from the conscious observation. So a lot of intuition is built based on subconscious observation. I think what I do is I catch myself doing things, not only in Go, but in life. I'll catch myself doing things a certain way, and I'll be like, why am I doing it that way? And if I really think about it, I realize there is a reason I shut the door with my left hand. It's like if I tried with my right hand, there's an issue or something like that. And same with Go. Like, it's like, why did I do it that way? And you go back and you verify, and you realize there is something behind your intuition that you understand that you didn't know you understood. But in order for your intuition to grow, I think you need to expand your observation skills in the conscious realm. Your intuition can't improve. It doesn't have the information it needs to improve. So how can we do that? How can we expand our conscious observation of the situation? I think we can kind of, just make sure we ask ourselves the question, why didn't that go as planned? When I play a move based on intuition, remember that move that you did play on intuition, and remember the result of it so that you can connect the two. Make note of certain moments during the game, and I think you will remember, even if you just try a little harder to remember certain things that you're doing. And it's really hands-off learning. Intuition is not something that you're supposed to instruct with a rule set or anything like that. You have to allow your intuition to grow, and you do that by actually playing a lot of games and making sure you're very aware while you're playing. Like, rather than like thinking so hard on what to do, just do things and watch and make sure you understand what's happening after you do these things. I hope that makes sense. I'll move on to judgment. To improve your judgment, I think what we need to do is you just need to actively use that skill. I think the biggest weakness of judgment is not using it. You play a game with all your intuition and calculation, but you never use the skill of judgment. And this is the problem I had. You would just play without questioning anything. You didn't use your judgment during the game very often. Maybe you used it once or twice. I think you have to ask yourself many questions during the game, like, did you command your salty crew to order reading when it is appropriate? Or did you just read everything willy-nilly? Did you count points when it was appropriate? Did you even think to count points? Did you explore your different win conditions enough throughout the game as things shifted? Did you ask yourself enough questions during the game? When your intuition wanted to play something, did you question that? Did you make the decision to verify it when it was questionable? And did you make the decision to not verify it when you felt like you could trust it? Did you have that conscious decision-making skill? Or did you just kind of go with the flow? Did you ask yourself which moves are the most worth exploring and in what order should I consider these moves? And did you say, these moves are possible but not worth considering? Did you make these executive decisions? This is hands-on learning. You have to practice this skill throughout the game and use these moments of judgment to question moves and win conditions and things like that. I think you'd be surprised how many people don't ask themselves this question throughout the game. They just kind of play. May not be you, but I think many people do. I was a very intuition-based and calculation-based player for a while, which leads us to calculation. So this one is like the most beneficial to be practiced outside of gameplay. Sumego, reading. You can read during the game. That also helps with calculation. You can practice Tsuji, but mostly I think like any kind of problems that you do that require you to read multiple moves ahead, not like the super easy ones, right? Because the super easy, I mean, that can reinforce your knowledge for sure. But if you want to really brute force this, you would maybe do a little more challenging ones with more moves. And yeah, you can do this during the game as well. So this is like just put in the reps, put in the hours, and your calculation will become better. So I think those are the ways we can improve at each element. And how do we know which element needs work? How do you know if your salty crew is dysfunctional? Let me kind of just do a little illustration of a type of player who is dominant or deficient in any of the members of their crew. So let's say they're intuition dominant. Someone who's super intuition dominant, reliant on intuition while neglecting other parts of their crew, might make too many moves quickly, really quickly, without thinking enough. They play puppy go. They follow around their opponent, because what happens is when somebody plays a move, your intuition will immediately respond, and it will just kind of suggest a move in that area, because that's just naturally how intuition works. So you definitely need somebody to back up and say like, hey, like you should consider other parts of the board. So if you play puppy go, you might be intuition dominant. And if you have a lot of bad habits without checking that they're actually bad moves, you might be intuition dominant. Because if you're too intuition dominant, you're going to not allow your intuition to be double checked. And that intuition will get stronger in the bad areas as well. If you're intuition deficient, I think that maybe you'll play a lot of strange moves that are not typical. You will be reviewed by a stronger player, and they will kind of get very puzzled at a lot of your moves without being able to explain why they're bad. They'll just kind of go like, I don't know why you played this. Like, this is not a good move, and they won't be able to explain much, because it's just there are certain moves that are good, and it's like hard to explain without just feeling the intuitive aspect of it. And maybe if you're intuition deficient, you haven't played enough fast games. If you played a lot, primarily very long games with a lot of thinking, maybe that's a little too slow for your intuition to pick up on what the good and bad moves are. Now, let's say you're someone who is judgment dominant, too heavy focus on the judgment. Maybe you're someone who spends too much time thinking, right? And you're not able to build your intuition because your conscious mind is thinking too much. You're not allowing your feeling on the board to come out because you just ignore it and then you just kind of think logically about every single situation. But you don't realize that the initial feeling is also a valuable input. I think that if you're judgment dominant, you basically have like a good idea of what's supposed to happen during the game, but it just doesn't happen because you don't have the tools needed to make it happen. If you're judgment deficient, this is where I kind of fell in for a while. You don't zoom out enough. You don't ask yourself the big questions, and you're kind of losing. And when you review it, you realize you just made the worst decisions. Like, why did you go for influence here when it was not going to do anything for you, right? Why did you go for this kill when you were winning already and that was a very risky move to make? Why are you going kill all go? Why are you trying to kill everything and make everything happen all over the board when you only need 51% of the board? You haven't done those decisions, or you haven't thought about those decisions, and so your go may be strong in certain ways, but in the big picture of things, it doesn't make sense. And then calculation. So if you're calculation dominant, you're just gonna be spending a lot of time reading. You're gonna spend a lot of your time reading, and that can benefit you and can become addictive. You will find things that are killing moves that you'll win off of that. You'll have these giant victories because you did this intense calculation in a certain area and killed something there, but that'll only last for so long, and as you go up in the ranks, you will find yourself trying to look for things that aren't there. You'll try to kill a group, and you'll read things over and over again, and in hopes that you'll find something that it's just not there. And that's because you haven't really honed your other skills, and you're kind of focusing too hard on this one skill. I think a lot of Fox players, you see that once you start climbing the Fox ladder, you'll see a lot of bad moves, bad openings, bad judgment, and then yet you still lose because they're calculation dominant and they're very strong. But once you know how to counter that, and you know how to balance your decision making, and you don't fall into the trap of doing the same thing and try to wrestle them in the pits of calculation, then you will see that you can win with just very easy decisions that don't require a lot of calculation. If you're calculation deficient, which is another very, very common problem, this is a pretty easy thing to see. You'll lose because of reading mistakes. Basically, you'll think something's alive when it's not. You'll think something's dead when it's not. You'll think something's connected when it's not, or you think something's not breakable but it is breakable. Or like you'll just think that you'll be able to kill something, and you start clicking it and or playing your moves, and at the end you'll realize, oh, it was just all safe and I suck. So this is like your strategy might be sound, your intuition even might be sound, but your execution is bad, and you're not able to verify things because it's the judge or the captain that is responsible for taking the intuition's input and saying, okay, good idea, let's make sure it works, right? Sometimes the intuition idea is more of a shape move that is just naturally, it looks good and is good, and there's nothing to verify from there. But actually, you can do large-scale abstract verification as well, where you see what the opening moves are, which I'm not good at, which I have probably need to work on. But let's say it's more of like a local fight thing where intuition says, this looks like the killing move. And if you don't have calculation, judgment will be like, great, that's probably the killing move. And boom, try to use it, but maybe it doesn't work. So the judgment is supposed to say, okay, that does look like a killing move. And from my experience, I think that it kind of looks like it would work. but let's employ the crew members to actually find out if it is a killing move. And then that's when you do the reading of various branches and see if it indeed is a killing move. And then, of course, if there's time pressure, you're going to be like, okay, I have to read the most likely responses, blah, blah, blah. If there's no time pressure, then you're like, okay, let's make sure we cover all the bases. So how do we employ our salty crews of Go during a game to make sure that each of them are getting the right amount of attention and are able to play a part? Because if we just use one of them, we know certain problems can arise. There's an acronym that kind of naturally came up. It's LUV, love. First, listen to your intuition. What moves or areas of the board are you naturally gravitating toward? Right? What moves look most natural to you, and where are you drawn? Your intuition will usually gravitate towards some kind of obvious looking response or move. Number 2, use your judgment. Gently guide your intuition with judgment and see what other candidate moves pop up. So, okay, intuition has spoken and said, this is where it looks really cool or interesting to me. Judgment will say like, okay, let's look somewhere else too. Like, if I direct your attention to this part of the board, is there another move there that you also find interesting? Have you considered this part? Zoom out every now and then evaluate the win conditions, and then you can kind of direct your intuition to do the same in other parts of the board, because your intuition will kind of just gravitate in one part and then not do anything unless you zoom out and then allow it to be used in another part. 3, V. Verify with calculation. So this is after your judgment has sufficiently asked the right questions and guided the intuition to give you the candidate moves. Now it's time for judgment to also decide where the best use of the brawn is, where you can calculate and verify. Like, this move, if it works, it's huge, so let's try that one. And after that one, let's do this one. But basically, it's kind of telling you where you need to verify with calculation. Like, let's say you have a situation where you can either defend a group that you might think is a little bit in peril, or take this big point that you've been eyeing for a while. Judgment can be like, okay, well, let's verify whether defense is even needed there. And so that's when you kind of need to send that crew in there to make sure. And then if it's not needed, then you can go ahead and take the big point. If it is needed, you probably need to defend. Or another example, let's say you're saying, I can either try to cut off this group or Tanuki. You have to go in and verify if it is possible without just kind of playing it and hoping that it is possible, because you may find out that you don't think that there is any way to do it. So then you should just Tanuki and get value somewhere else. So in practice, this LOVE acronym will intermingle with each other and cycle through many times during even a single turn. For example, if I first use intuition to listen to my intuition and to say what move looks good or natural to me, then judgment might first ask like, okay, that looks good to you. What does this move actually do? Right? Sometimes we want to play a move without knowing what we're trying to do with that move. So judgment needs to analyze that and say, oh, okay, looks like you want to seal this group off with that move. You can ask things like, does it actually seal that group off? Can the enemy still escape? Right? With calculation, you can verify. You can order a calculation to verify that. Or you can say, is it worth sealing it off in the first place? Do I even want to seal it off? Intuition says it looks good, but in the overall scheme of things, do I want to do that? And then judgment can also ask, what other things can I do? Are there other routes to victory? And then when judgment shifts over, then intuition comes back into play again and says, okay, you know what? You're right, judgment. I think that I didn't consider this corner of the board. There's a weird thing over here that I'm seeing. So I actually see that there are a couple moves here that I would like to try as well. Then judgment steps back in and says, okay, good. Now let's see. Should I verify these moves, or are the other moves that I initially considered stronger moves, right? It's just going to be like a big cycle of intuition, judgment, calculation, repeat, rinse and repeat. right? So, but I think without thinking of these categories, it's easy to ignore some of these and kind of get lost because we feel like we're doing so much. Like, say you're a super calculator and you're calculating everything and you're like, I'm still losing, why? Or you're thinking about the overall strategy of the game so much, but you just can't seem to win. Or you're just playing these moves that you've known to win games for you, but for some reason it's not working out. It's important to put all of these things into play. And just another note about score estimation. I think it's a kind of a different category from reading, but at the same time, it is very much similar to it. Intuition can also appear in this process. You can look at a board and just say like, oh, intuition says that I feel like I'm winning. Judgment will say, okay, that's good for you. And then during the game, it might be like, I feel like I'm winning, but I think now it is very important to know who is winning. And we'll order calculation, and then calculation will count the actual score. And finally, the integrity of moves that I've mentioned a few times throughout this is also another thing that all three members of the crew can help with, like in life and death statuses, connections, and captures. And this is like, because, Go is an ever-changing state, right? Like, you can't just decide something's alive at one point in the game and then forget about it, because things change, and you'd be surprised how different the board can get. And so you do need to constantly check the integrity of things, not only your groups, but also your opponents, the life and death status, the connections, and the kind of sure captures that haven't fully crystallized, but you basically have crystallized. Intuition can kind of remind us like, oh, remember this move? Check that one again. Judgment will be like, okay, is it actually dangerous if I lose that, if I miscalculate that, and can kind of tell us when we need to check, and then calculation does the checking. So a lot of different applications. I feel like you can kind of take any aspect of Go and split it up into these elements. I hope this kind of helps organize your thoughts about how to approach the game and what your brain is doing. I think there's so many ways that we can categorize our brains. I'm a huge Myers-Briggs fan, just like for fun, right? I don't think it's a good thing to take too seriously, but I love the whole thing of trying to describe the different elements of our minds and organize them so that we can talk about it. Because if you don't organize them and call things what they are, it's very difficult to develop and talk about it. But if you kind of categorize it, like with intuition, judgment, and calculation, now you can kind of start talking a little more about like, what did I use, what did I not use during the game, and be more conscious of where you need to work on what skills. There's a period of time recently that I mentioned not really applying enough reading to my games. And I guess that is, you could kind of say it's like a judgment thing where I didn't use my judgment, or calculation. Maybe it was just kind of weak, but it's kind of almost another dimension entirely, which is like a discipline thing where I was kind of just too lazy to read and I didn't do it when I should have. And that's like a whole other dimension that I didn't really mention in this episode. And so, yeah, there's like 1,000,001 ways to break down the elements of your skill. And this is just one of them. I've thought of other ways before, so I might do more episodes like this in the future. But if you have ever tried to kind of categorize and define all the different elements that go into what makes you a good Go player, and you have those ideas with you, I'd love to hear them, because there are a lot of ways to try to organize what aspects of the game you need to work on, and everyone has a kind of different idea of how that works. So I'd love to hear about what you think about that. But now it's time for the DDK Advice Corner, and the tip of the day is feel the open spaces. I think this is like the third time I talk about emphasizing the open spaces, and they're all kind of similar, but this one, every time I go back and review some DDK games, I just feel that people are not paying attention to the space on the board. The board is like a plentiful, bountiful field of many fruits and harvests, and that is the open spaces on the board. And so you should just feel the open spaces and pay attention to them and let your intuition understand. This isn't like, the other tips that I've given regarding open spaces is like play in the open spaces, approach from the more open side, things like that. But overall, I think it pays off to just feel the open spaces and take it in, soak it in, look at it and go, wow, what an open space. And maybe that'll get your intuition to pay a little more attention. And now it's time for listener mail. James writes, "Hi Justin, just got back from my honeymoon and catching up on a few episodes, but wanted to share my actual Go-inspired wedding band I referenced in my last email. I had it custom made, but the metal is just titanium, so the price was way more affordable than if I had tried to do this with gold or platinum, etc. Catch you later, James." And James sent me a photo of his incredible wedding band. And it is, if you don't remember, it was a few episodes back, he wrote in saying that he made a wedding band with inlays of shell and slate and Gobon. I don't remember if there was like a specific kind of Gobon wood or if it was from like a real Gobon, but I wanted a photo of it and it looks really cool. There's a nice close-up image and he's permitted me to share this with you guys. So I'm going to plop it into the Discord literally right now. So if you see it, well, I'll plop it into there right after I record this episode. So if you want to check it out, come join our Discord. The link is in the description. And it is a really cool wedding band. It is so awesome that it's just like a Go themed wedding band. And I've never seen anything like it. So thanks for sharing, James, and thanks for writing in. Jack writes, "Hi, Justin. I started listening to the podcast within the last couple months and really appreciate the effort and creativity that you bring to it." Well, thank you, Jack. Regarding your question of the week, I am a low Dawn player and I've been dealing for a long time with rank anxiety and feelings of dejection when losing. I found that it was severely impacting my ability to enjoy Go and making me reticent to play since there was such a high risk of feeling terrible afterwards if I made a serious mistake in the game. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, I've known for a while that it's important to change my attitude toward the game to make it a truly enjoyable part of my life instead of a pride-infused chore. Ideally, I want to be able to find this enjoyment while continuing to improve. The feeling of play is crucial for actual learning. We learn poorly both when we are bored and when we are under too much stress. Enjoyably engaged is the ideal mindset for learning anything. I totally agree. That is the goal, I think. And if you start stressing out too much and it's like, a lot of people are stressed about Go, and a lot of those people are like Insei and students of Go, those who are actually trying to make something of their life with Go. Because, a lot of parents in Asia, I think, force their kids to do things that are like this sometimes, and it can be super stressful. But when we as adults pick up this game to enjoy ourselves with it, it really makes no sense for us to be stressing out about it and having it be a source of anxiety. So I think you're recognizing that you don't want that, and that's not something that you need to have when you play Go. So it is a struggle for everyone, I think. Continuing. So the strategy I've used recently is making a new, unserious Fox account to play on. An account where I can truly tell myself I don't care about my rank. I set up my starting rank to be a few stones lower than I actually am and have been slowly working my way back up. When playing against weaker players in these early stages, I try to relax and play completely vibes-based Go with very little reading. And this is important, I intentionally lose from time to time. Not as in I resign after 30 moves to keep my rank low, but in that I intentionally try to play a close game that I let my opponent win. Very interesting. I'm not sure. I think I have related to the idea of creating an unserious account. But what I found was that my Fox account itself had become my unserious account. And I usually just don't feel as anxious playing on Fox for some reason. Maybe it's the fact that everyone on there is totally disconnected from everyone I know here, and like it's just a different country, and it's like I will never meet them. I have no idea what they look like, and they're just like in another planet almost, right? A planet called China. but I just don't feel as like, you know, you can't talk to them, right? I don't know Chinese. I don't know how to speak Mandarin or anything. And like, it just feels more disconnected for me. And then also the way they play feels more casual. So I've always felt a little more casual. But I don't know if I would go as far as intentionally give up some victories. But anyway, I want to see a little more about what you say before I react to that. It's remarkable how much more relaxing I have found this attitude. A game that I've committed to losing ahead of time feels like a cooperative exercise with my opponent, trying to keep the game interesting and close, but playing a little inefficiently. It also gives me the opportunity to try moves that normally would feel too risky. I can see how they play out and learn from them, where I would be loath to try them in a more serious game. It's also very freeing to be completely willing to spontaneously resign a game if my wife or son needs my attention, which again is difficult to do if I'm thinking about how a game will affect my rank. Well, I feel like you're kind of like an anime character. Like, you know, there's just always a quirky cast of characters, and there's the one guy, for some reason he decides like, oh, you know what, I just play. I don't care about winning or losing, and you know what, sometimes I lose on purpose. And it's like you're just kind of like scratching your head like, why are you doing that? And then you realize, oh, he's like, this is like just his vibes kind of based attitude, and this is how he enjoys Go. But it's an interesting thing to be sure. I don't know if I would try it. Maybe if I was stronger and I got to the point where you got to, I might give it a shot. But for me, every time I go into a game, I feel like I just have to, like, you know, I've got to respect the game and respect the opponent and just square up, right? But if it's like stressful for you, I mean, anything that gets you out of that rut, I mean, I would say it's worth a shot. At some point, I'm sure I'll go back to my main account, but hopefully I'll have learned some valuable lessons on my unserious account. I've been experiencing much less of a mental hesitation in booting up Fox since I started playing this way. Congratulations on your marriage. Many happy years and many healthy children to you and your wife, Jack. Well, thank you so much for those kind words. I really appreciate it. And the whole attitude of just not being so goal-oriented while playing the game and just playing because it's a fun game to play, and really giving up that whole win-lose condition. I wonder what that would be like if you found someone who also did the same thing, and would that be an enjoyable experience as well? I've thought that those who are beginners who just can't get into the game because it's stressful and they just feel like they're not good. I've always felt like maybe we need to relax on the whole winning-losing thing and just play Go, because it is possible to play Go without really... Like, okay, imagine this. You're playing soccer, or football as you call it over there, over the seats. And let's say you're playing with some friends and you're not keeping score, right? That is like the same thing, almost. You're playing, you're kicking the ball, you're scoring on each other, and you're not keeping score. You're having a great time. Same with like when you're playing catch or something, and you know, you're just throwing the ball around, and it's like, it is a technical thing where you can try to throw as best as you can and catch it every single time and be competitive in that way, but that's not really the point. And so I think that's similar to kind of what you're doing here, and it's like kind of cool. I feel like we need more of that to allow people to enjoy the game more. So thanks for writing in. Thanks for your thoughts, Jack. Dan Fornica writes, I haven't listened yet, but as soon as I saw the title, I thought this is the episode I need right now. And this is in regards to, does Go feel like a chore? And I think, yeah, a lot of people feel that way. Thanks for writing in. Runiel Nalovir says, this episode really hit home for me. I'm 9Q and have had 8Q before. It's kind of strange, my relationship with Go, because on one hand, I want to become as strong as possible and eventually reach Dawn, but at the same time, that leads to procrastinating and anxiety around playing, which is no good. I'm trying to just enjoy myself more, reminding myself that it's only a rank I'm concerned about, and I'm trying to take a more relaxed approach to the game, smiley face. Yeah, see, a lot of people have this kind of issue. So a little bit of a detour here. I was watching a Nintendo Direct video on an upcoming game called Kirby Air Riders, and the lead Sakurai, the game designer, he introduced the ranking system for this game. It's kind of like a Mario Kart-ish game, but it's not Mario Kart. But there's a competitive mode for it, and he said that there are ranks that are usually like gold, silver, or A, B, C tier, but he said he just made them colors of the rainbow, and that the ranks are not like, they don't make, the higher rank doesn't make you more important. They're just a way to group players to have a better time, and he emphasized it that way. And I was like, you know what, that is a healthy attitude towards matchmaking and competitive gaming, because I feel like we as Go players, we want to reach the highest peaks that we can, and that's kind of part of the enjoyment of the game. But at some point, you have to just realize that the game itself, between you and someone of your own skill level, is a great time in and of itself. A lot of things to talk about regarding this topic, so thanks for writing in, Runiel. And Tyraniton writes, that's so strange. I went on to your page this morning to find this video and it didn't show up in the playlist. Are you sure you added it to the Starpoint playlist? And I responded, I just want to let you guys know, for some reason, YouTube, when it ingests the episode through the RSS, it sometimes sets it to private, and it's not like every time in the morning it sets it to private. I set it to public, and then it sets it to private again some other time in the day. So on Mondays, when I release the episode, I gotta keep going back and setting it to public. I don't know why YouTube is doing this, and then every time it sets it to private, it also glitches out and removes it from the Starpoint playlist, and then I have to unadd it from it says it's in the playlist, so I have to remove it from the playlist, even though, and then I have to add it back in. And so it's a whole ordeal, so I apologize if that's been affecting y'all's flows. But so hopefully I submitted a ticket to YouTube, but I don't think they're going to respond. But anyway, thanks for writing in. Sadaharu writes, funny how you mentioned that playing Go is a chore, because for me, making episodes weekly would definitely feel like a chore. I'm not sure how you managed to do it. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I guess it can feel like a chore sometimes, but I'm motivated. I'm motivated by the community. I see that there's value in doing the podcast, and it feels like a commitment to me. So I like doing it. And Go, on the other hand, I feel a little more freeform. Like, there's no, I haven't made this commitment that's like a thing that I've consistently put out into the public or anything, so I feel like it's a little harder for me to motivate myself to do it. But yeah, I don't know, I just started it, and it just kept going, and I thought I would run out of things to talk about, and I was like wondering how would I continue this, and I don't know. Every time I hit the record button and I have a topic somehow so far. So we'll see how long it goes. But continuing on your comment, I agree that we should have more casual version of Go that people can easily get into. Encouraging smaller boards is one way. Many players are often intimidated by the 19x19 board. It definitely feels much bigger compared to the shogi or chessboard. Playing Capture Go is another. As long as there is an easier version for people to start with, I think eventually it may draw more people to the wonderful world of Go. Yeah, that's true. I think even on the 9x9, as soon as they play it though, it is pretty hard still. What happens, what I've seen is they just get captured on the first line and they're like, this is hard. But you know what the thing is though, Sadaharu, I think if you think about all the people who are into the game right now and who like the game, they're not people who are attracted because they started playing an easy game and they wanted to know more about it. They were curious about a difficult game, and they looked at it and they were like, that is a strangely difficult game and I like that, and then they went to it. And so I don't know, maybe there is maybe that's just one type of person and that type of person plays Go, and there are many other types of people who just can't do that and would like to play Go but can't because they don't think it's easy to learn. And so yeah, I guess whatever way that we can cast the net to catch Go players, we should try. But I'm just noting that the type of person that plays Go is kind of just looking at this wonderful, complex thing and approaching it boldly. I think that's kind of how everybody started off. So, but we'll see. Thanks for writing in. Konixus writes, Switch has another Go game called Silver Star Go, which advertises getting anyone to 2-dan, has Sumego and can play against AI or local 2-player, but the translations are kind of bad. I'm gonna have to look this up. Let's see, Silver Star Go. I think I've seen this one. Silver Star Go being stronger while playing. Silver Star Go DX. It looks like Fox or something. It really does. The graphics looks like Fox, and then it has this almost like dating sim style tutorial stuff, I think. But anyway, I feel like it's a strong claim to say that you can get anyone to 2-dan. There can't be a big market for Go players on the Nintendo Switch. So it's like, who is setting out as a developer to make these games? Maybe there is a small amount of people who want to play Go on the Switch that sustain these programs, but I don't know any Silver Star Go DX players myself. Jinsei Ego and Silver Star Go both have bad AI difficulty scaling in my opinion, since the next difficulty setting after beginner is 9Q, which can be frustrating when you're between 30 and 9Q. Yeah, I can imagine that's a little frustrating. 9Q is pretty strong. As for the other console Go games, the only game I've seen that involves Go is literally called The Table Game. What is The Table Game? Console, The Table Game. That's a very strange... it's a Switch game called The Table Game. Oh, and then it's like a variety pack of games that includes things like Mahjong, Hanafuda, Texas Hold'em, Shogi, Othello, and Go. Wow, okay. Thanks for these call-outs for the extra Nintendo Switch Go games. I will not be getting either of these, but that's very interesting that there are even more. And it seems like you've done some research too, because you're able to find these random games in the corners of the eShop. So thanks for rating in. Spiros writes, another great episode. Keep it up. Thanks so much. That means a lot. Thank you all for the listener mail. The question of the week this week is, how balanced is your Salty crew? The intuition, calculation, and judgment elements that you have, are they all in balance? Do you feel like one is stronger than the others? Do you feel like one is weaker than the others? I'd like to know how you feel about this trio. So if you want to share your thoughts, leave a comment wherever you found this episode, or email me directly at starpointpaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe. If you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A very special thank you to James B., Brendan S., Tristan, Jeff H., and Tyraniton for supporting Starpoint. If you want to support the show in any capacity, you can go to ko-fi.com/starpointbaduk, that's KO-FI, or check out the Starpoint store at store.starpointbaduk.com, and come on over to the Discord. The water is warm. You can find the link in the description. And you know what Goban is what a Goban is short for? Because you're supposed to play on the floor. Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.